Chris.
I'm 37 years old, been out of high school for almost 20 years. I actually went to some of the best schools available, which is Department of Defense dependent schools overseas in Germany. And I felt like I got a great education. But what's really upsetting, especially since I've seen David Barton before and also watching the show, really just hacked me off, as you said, is that I'm just now finding out about these things. I looked at some textbooks from friends of mine who were like, still in school. They're still teaching about the same 4 to 5 standard black people in history. Pretty much it's always Harriet Tubman, Crispus Attucks, Frederick Douglass. Some of them mention Benjamin Banneker, but it's always the same 4 or 5, as if there was only 4 or 5 black people who contributed to this country throughout its history. And it's just like, why is this still the same way with all the information we have today in 2010?
May I ask a question? Because Javier and Cynthia, you are shaking your heads while he's saying this, and you look a little disgusted by this whole thing. Can you pass, Chris, can you pass Javier a microphone? Because, I mean, it's robbing heritage.
Absolutely. And I was present in the audience at your last show where you did this, and I had some very strong comments that I made about Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah.
And what I mentioned specifically on that show was the fact that what I found particularly galling in that instance was there are scholarships for minorities named after Woodrow Wilson.
Right.
And I find a lot of this particularly infuriating because, like Chris, I went to some very good schools. And these are names, aside from maybe 1 or 2 of them, that I had never been exposed to and I had never heard about until, this day or the last show that we had, the very first time that you had this discussion.
Cynthia, how do you feel?
Well, this is my first time ever hearing this, and I'm a little appalled. I mean, I'm not that far removed from even college, and I took African-American courses, and some of this stuff I'm hearing for the first time. And, I mean, public education, one thing, but when you're paying for your education and you're not getting this information, it's really, really sad.
I got news for you. We're paying for we're paying for everybody's education. Thank you. Stephen, you had a question?
In 1722, England created...
1772?
Or 1772, my bad. England created a law ending the slave trade. The slave trade continued anyways, and America continued to get slaves. And 3 years later, the American Revolution started. And do you believe that this law contributed to the beginning of the American Revolution?
Stand by. We'll get that answer and more from the audience in just a second. America, I have to tell you, I just said to David right before we went on the air that I've gotten the chills like 3 times this episode because I just know this is the answer. The answer to our problems, restoration. I'm reading, we were talking in the break, I'm reading a book called The Children, which is the story of the 1960 and the beginning of the civil rights movement and what these people went through. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And I don't know a lot of that history because there's this barrier, imagined or not, there's this barrier. How many African Americans don't know the history of these guys and the American Revolution? When we restore that history and we restore the truth about segregation and all of the nastiness there, whites and blacks can just knit together because we've both been lied to. Yeah. We really have both been lied to. Now, Stephen asked a question before we took a break.
Great Britain, 1772, wiped out slavery or passed a law to do so. Did it have any impact in America, even though the British didn't follow it? Mm-hmm. And the answer is yes. In 1773, Rhode Island started passing anti-slavery laws. In 1774, Massachusetts started passing anti-slavery laws. Pennsylvania passed anti-slavery laws because they now have the permission to do so. In 1774, after all these states start passing them, King George III came in and vetoed every American anti-slavery law. He said, oh, stop. You guys are part of the British Empire. We have slavery in the British Empire. As long as you're part of the British Empire, you're going to have slavery. And that's where several founders said, Great. Let's not make part of the British Empire anymore. So given the opportunity, you'll find that in the original Declaration, the desire to end slavery is listed twice as often as taxation without representation. Twice as often. We hear taxation, we don't hear the desire to end slavery.
Deneen.
Your book is great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have you considered doing your own Black History Month? Because we're doing a poor job of it.
We actually have. On our website, we've come out with a number of Black History little magazines just telling stories of these guys. And they're on our website, and you can get these things. But I tell you, I have a blast. These are my heroes. I mean, I'm an American. These are Americans. I love good models. And we just didn't know these guys. And so we enjoy digging back in. And I'll say, this is an old 1855 textbook. It is not a skinny textbook. There is nothing but black patriots in the American Revolution in that. It's not like we're shallow on black patriots.
What is the
That's
name
all
of
that
this
is.
book?
That is Colored Patriots of the American Revolution, William Nell.
Who here even knew in 1850 what?
1855.
1855 there was a school textbook, Colored Patriots. Who even knew that?
It hasn't been reprinted, but it's on Google Books. If you want to read that book, go to Google Books and you can read. And it's done by a black historian, William Nell, who's the first black to hold any federal office in the federal government.
Jen.
I'm really angry about the rewriting of history and, you know, all this history that's not included in the school's textbooks. And for me, anger motivates me. And aside from the good work of Mr. Barton, and even assuming, like you said, if these textbooks start to include all of this excellent history, you know, I'm still cynical that even the public school system will teach it in a way that doesn't twist it almost to the negative. And I want to know what else that we can do and what other efforts are underway to get this.
Okay. Let's answer that question, because I think that is a critical question and a critical answer. We'll do that next. Before we went into the break, Jan asked us, is it Jen or Jan? Jen asked us the question about, you know, what do you do? David, you have to be a part of the school district. You have to be involved in the textbooks and everything that you're doing in Texas. And people have to be involved with their schools. But correct me if you think I'm wrong. America, I think we're running out of time. And this is, I really view our children as clay jars. And it is the scripture. Can I have that book?
Yes,
this
sir.
This is the scripture, American scripture, Colored Patriots. If we lose it with all of this freedom and technology, it will never be seen again if something goes awry. We must not only learn it, seek it out, but teach it to our children and make sure they know it and waste no time. Do you disagree?
And we've got to be intolerant of school districts who won't teach it. Because if we know it and teach our kids, then we've got a basis to go, look at the textbooks you've got. You've omitted this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, and make it so intolerant they have to get different textbooks.
I'm trying to write a book for Christmas that'll be for kids. It's on American heroes and patriots, and it will show the textbooks off to the side. It'll show this is what you're going to learn in your textbooks. And this is where you find the information that shows that's wrong. So we can teach our children not only the truth stories, but then teach our children to find the right answer and then stand up respectfully to their teachers. The other thing I want to mention to you is the last American revival that I'm doing. We've done, what, 3 of these, and they've been sold out, 10,000 people each. We're doing the last one in July in Salt Lake City. It's Saturday, I think the 17th of July. Tickets are available. We'll put it at the bottom of the screen. I think it's glennbecktours.com. But it's a 7-hour event. This isn't for somebody who just wants, you know, hey, I'm just going to go have a good time. You'll have a great time. It's almost a spiritual event. It really is. And this is the kind of stuff that you learn. And the only complaint we've had on this is people say, can you turn the house lights up a little more? Because I want to take more notes. It is up to you to be able to preserve this. You must get active. The most important thing you can do is read history. Read, search, question with boldness even the very existence of God, and then teach it to your children. We'll be back. Final thoughts next. All right, we're going to leave things tonight with Vanessa.
I just think that, like Marcus Garvey said, a people without knowledge of their history is like a tree without roots. And this history is really important so that we can change the victim narrative that's monopolized the conversation.
And the same for everyone that is an American. We've got to know our roots. From New York, good night, America.